This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Ruchim Abam to the Kala Agra de Perka. Welcome everyone. And as we prepare for Parshas Toldos, I just want to give you advance warning that everything you do or say could be held against you in a court of law, because we're streaming on different media, internet, phones, photographers, video cameras. We're bugged, so you have to be very careful today. If anybody wants to make a joke, it better be funny. Okay. So Parshas Toldos. Rivka Imenu was waiting a very long time. She was mispalel. Yitzchak was mispalel. Finally, v'hinei sa'imim b'vetna. And the Torah tells us, vayisroitzu habana b'kerba. The two children are struggling. V'atoimer, and she says, "What's going on? Imkain lama za'anoichi. If this is what's happening, what am I? Why did I want this?" V'atelech lidroishas Hashem. So she went to investigate of God. It's a very strange piece of information over here. By the kids were struggling. I mean, what do you think babies do in their mother's womb? What, they sit there like a lemela? Carrying a child, it hurts. Well, what did Rivka think? Rivka thought it was a piece of cake. Rivka thought it would make her life more pleasant to be carrying children. I mean, she knew what she's in for. No woman thinks that carrying a child is an easy thing. So the kids are struggling. Big deal. That's what she was davening for. So she says, if this is the case, then what did I want this for? Okay. So she went to investigate of God. We know she went to the Beis Medrash of Shem. God told her through the agent of the Navi, Shnei Goyim bevitnech. Don't worry. You're going to have two nations. Ushnei le'umim, and two regimes, mimeayich yiparedu, will separate from your loins. Ula'oy milam yemotz, one will be stronger than the other. The Rav Yavoid Sayer, and the oldest one will serve the younger one. So if Rivka is upset that she's having labor pains, exactly what is the big nechama? Don't worry, you're going to have two nations. It's wonderful. But I'm not enjoying the pain. How does that address her issue? And then Rashi points out that the word goyim, even though it's read goyim, is spelled gayim. It's spelled, the ksiv is gimel yud yud mem, which Rashi says means majestic ones. Gayim ksiv, kamay goyim. Who does this refer to? Elu Antoninus or Rabbi. This refers to two great people in history, by the name of Antoninus and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. And what was so great about them? Shalai pasku me'al shulchanam, that it never ceased from upon their tables. Loi tzinoin, not radishes. V'loi chazaras, not lettuce. Loi b'yimais hachama, not in the summer. V'loi b'yimais hacham, not in the rain. So here's this woman. She doesn't know what's going on in her life. She's having terrible pains. By the way, Rashi points out, what were these kids struggling over? They were struggling over, they were having a philosophical argument. They were having a philosophical debate. Rashi brings down in number 2 that this Ritza was the following. When she passed by the Beis HaMedrash, Yaakov was running to come out. When she passed by the Pesach of Avodah Zarah, Esav was Mefarches Latses. So she thinks to herself, she doesn't know she has 2 kids. She thinks to herself, she has one kid who's schizophrenic. She has one kid who's a meshugana. He doesn't know what he wants. Does he want Torah or does he want Avodah Zarah? So she was very confused. She was very upset. What kind of child do I have? So we ready for the nechama? Don't worry. You're going to have 2 kids. One is going to be a tzaddik and one is going to be a rasha. Now, who specifically were they referring to? Rebbe and Antoninus. And what's so great about Rebbe and Antoninus? That they always eat radishes and lettuce. Can you imagine? So here we have a woman. She's worried. What's going to be with my future? Here I have a kid. He wants to jump to the Beis Medrash and he wants to come to the house of Avodah Zarah. So the Navi says, don't worry. Relax. Calm your horses. You're going to have one kid who's a tzaddik and one kid who'll be the biggest murderer in the history of the world. You know what he'll be responsible for? The Spanish Inquisition, the Holocaust, the pogroms. But don't worry, one good guy will come out of him who's going to eat radishes. So everything will be okay, because he's going to eat lettuce and radishes. So if she was upset and disturbed before this conversation with shame, this should have put her over the edge. What exactly is so calming that she's going to have a child, a descendant by the name of Antoninus, who's going to eat radishes? You think Rivka could care less whether Antoninus has radishes in the summer or doesn't have radishes? That's like the Navi says, don't worry. Even on a day like today when it's raining outside, your descendant Antoninus will go to Wasserman's, and the store it will be stocked with radishes and lettuce. Well, what's going on over here? And if she's worried about Esav, if Rivka's worried about Esav, is the best nechama, oh, don't worry, someone good will come out of Esav. His name is Antoninus. That's the best good descendant that could come out of Esav. There's so many good Gerim that came out of Esav. You know what Shem should have told Rivka? Shem should have told Rivka, don't worry. There's going to be a man by the name of Nero Kezar, and he's going to convert, and from him, Reb Meir is going to come. So Shem should have told Rivka, don't worry, Reb Meir is going to come from you. Or don't worry, Onkelos is going to come from you. Or don't worry, Shmaya Bavtalion is going to come from you. What do they come up with? The Navi says, don't worry, you're going to have somebody by the name of Antoninus. Well, we'll have to learn whether Antoninus even converted or not. And Antoninus is always going to eat radishes and lettuce. So Rivka, oh, good, that's wonderful. He's going to be very healthy. He's going to have a lot of salad. And now I feel much better. Now, my worries about Esav being a mass murderer are much calmer now. Now that I know that Antoninus is going to eat his veggies. That's wonderful. So the question is, what exactly is the big nechama that Antoninus is going to come from Esav?
What's the difference between Goyim and Lumim?
What?
The difference between Goyim and Lumim.
Goyim are nations, Lumim are regimes. But we're not off the topic. Okay. So the Gemara says in Masechta Avodah Zarah on Daf Yud Amud Beis regarding this Antoninus. By the way, when we talk about Antoninus, we're referring to Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, who was the Roman emperor from the year 161 to 180 of the Common Era. Okay, so we're talking about Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. His father was also the emperor, Antoninus Pius, who ruled from 138 to 161. And the Gemara Masechta Avodah Zarah tells us that Antoninus and Rebbe had a very unique relationship. The Gemara Masechta Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Amud Beis says like this. No, this is the wrong sheet. We don't have any more.
Okay.
Yeah? The Gemara says like this. Havalei hahi nekarta. There was a cave, an underground tunnel, that went from the house of Antoninus to the house of Rebbe. Now you should know that throughout the history of the land of Israel, there have always been hundreds and thousands of underground tunnels. It's a fact. The tunnel system abounded in Israel since ancient time. And there was a tunnel from the house of Antoninus till the house of Rebbe. Now what's very interesting is that where exactly did Antoninus live? Antoninus, well, he lived in Rome. He lived in an area of Eretz Yisrael called Rome. Okay, this is during the Roman occupation of Israel. They named a certain location Rome in Israel, and Antoninus was the Romans' ambassador to their serf state of Eretz Yisrael. And there was a cave, an underground tunnel, that went from the house of Antoninus all the way to Rebbe's house. And what did Antoninus do? He would bring two servants with him. Chad katle, one he would kill above the Bay Rebbe on Rebbe's entrance. Chad katle above the base, and one he would kill on the way home. In other words, he would go in the underground cave, okay, and he would be accompanied by two slaves. One he would kill when he got to Rebbe's house. one he would kill when he got home, because he didn't want anyone tattling on him. If anyone would know, if in Rome they would find out that Antoninus was going to learn Torah from the Gadol Hadar, that would be suicidal. That would be like saying that Obama has an underground tunnel going to Bnei Brak, to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and every day he sneaks under the Atlantic Ocean to go learn Torah from Reb Chaim Kanievsky. What? So that's what was happening over there. So the question is, how is Antoninus allowed to do this? He can't kill. It's one of the Zayim Mitzvahs Neinach. So the Tosfos points out he would take avodim that were chayiv misa anyway. He tells Rebbe that I want you to know that when I come to learn Torah from you, I don't want anyone to be there. This cannot leak out. Sure enough, he comes to learn Torah from Rebbe, and Rabbi Chanina Bar Chama is sitting there. So Antoninus says, Rebbe, didn't I tell you I don't want anyone being there when we come to learn Torah together? So Rebbe says, this man, less bar inish, he's not a man, he's not a person, he's like an angel. So Antoninus wanted to see exactly who this Rabbi Chanina ben Chama was. So he said, do me a favor, I have a servant that's sleeping outside. Go wake him up. Now the servant wasn't sleeping. I mean, he was sleeping, but he wasn't waking up, right? He was dead, because Antoninus had killed him before he came into Rebbe's house. So Rabbi Chanina ben Chama goes over to the Eved. He said, wake up! He pulls his eyes up, he's knocking him out. No, he doesn't wake up. So he said, I don't know what to do. If I'm going to go and tell Antoninus the Eved is dead, there's a halacha that if somebody sends you to do them a mission, if someone asks you to do them a favor, it's a halacha, you're not allowed to come back to them with bad news. Ein mashivan al hakakala. So I'm not allowed to tell him the Eved's dead. Elamai, I should go and tell him. I shouldn't go and tell him anything. It's not derech eretz. So Reb Chanina ben Chama had no choice but to daven and revive the slave. So he woke up the slave and he went to Antoninus and he said, yeah, I woke him up. So Antoninus saw, yeah, this guy's he's no ben Adam. He's not an Adam. But nevertheless, he tells Antoninus tells Rebbe, look, I do not want anyone to be here when I come to visit you. Okay, the Gemara continues that when Antoninus came to Rebbe, he would be Meshamish Rebbe. He would feed him. He would give him to drink. When Rebbe wanted to go up to his bed, Antoninus would get down on all four. He would say, climb on top of me to your bed. Rebbe would say, Lav, Oirach, Aro, Lizalzule, B'malchus Kolehai. It's not derech eretz to be disparaging, to demean the king. Says Antoninus, Halavai, I should be your doormat in Olam Haba. Halavai, I should be your doormat in the world to come. So Antoninus says, are you telling me I'm going to have a share in Olam Haba? But Chazal say in the pasuk, Lo yiyah sarid lebeis Esav, that Esav will have no remnant in the future days. So Rebbe says, no, that's only people who act like Esav. But those who act proper like you will have a share in the world to come. So the Gemara is telling us that there's a very unique relationship between Antoninus and Rebbe. Antoninus would actually climb and crawl through an underground tunnel every single day. Not once in a while. Every single day, Rebbe would have a visitor. Antoninus would come to learn from Rebbe. Now, this was at the last 17 years of Rebbe's life, when Rebbe lived in Sipori. So at that period of time, Antoninus would come and learn from him. Now, take a look. Rabbi Victor Miller has a Sefer, Exalted People. And if you look in paragraph 420, he comments that if you were to search the ancient annals of history, Roman history, to read about Antoninus' relationship with Rebbe, you would see nothing about it. This would have been suicide for Antoninus to let on that he's coming to learn Torah from Rebbe. But, nevertheless, says Rav Victor Miller, this was a most unusual episode in history. The Roman emperor became the devoted disciple of the Nasi. By means of one of the underground tunnels, which abounded in the land of Israel, and which were famous in the war of Beitar, Antoninus visited his teacher frequently, which the Gemara says every day. And if you look in Masechta Sanhedrin, you'll see Antoninus asked Rebbe many, many questions. So now we can understand a very important nevuah in this week's Parsha. Shem tells Rivka Imenu, V'rav Ya'avoid Tza'ir, Esav, the older one, will serve Yaakov, the younger one. When did that ever happen? When did that ever happen? During the Holocaust? During the Inquisition? During the pogroms? When in the last 2,000 years did Esav ever serve Yaakov? It only happened 17 years in history. When Antoninus would come every day to learn Torah from Rebbe, get down on all four, Rebbe would stand on his back and get into his bed. V'rav ya'avoid sa'ir. This is the fruition of the nevuah of the Navi Hashem that Esav will serve Yaakov. But now this is very important, and you should know that Antoninus serving Rebbe was very likely the single most important historical event in Jewish history. Say what? That's a very bold statement. What was so important about Antoninus giving Rebbe breakfast? The answer is, if I were to ask you, what is the purpose of this world? Why did Rebbe Shem create the world? For two reasons. Bereshis bara Elokim. Bishvil Yisrael shenikra Rashis. Bishvil Torah shenikra Rashis. Hashem created the world for Klal Yisrael to learn Torah. Which Torah? Torah Shebachsav or Torah Shebal Peh? Torah Shebal Peh. The main relationship that God has with the Jewish people is with the oral law. Ki al pi hadvarim ha'ele karati itcha bris. Like karas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bris im Yisrael, ela b'shvil Torah Shebal Peh, says Rabbi Yochanan and Gittin, Samach Amud Beis.
That's rabbinic Judaism.
That is Judaism. That's the only Judaism, right? Yes. You'll say, what do you mean? Chumash! No, not Chumash. Tanakh! Not Tanakh. You know why? Because the Chumash and the Tanakh were co-opted by the other religions. Because since they were in print, they were stolen, and they were misinterpreted, and they were hijacked, and they were corrupted. So God can make a covenant with the Jewish people with something that all nations have access to. The only way we can make a covenant is something that it's only between us and God, the oral law. Before the time of Rebbe, the Chachamim were reeling. Because of Roman occupation, the Jewish Chachamim had so little power, they cannot even appoint a Rosh Masifta. They cannot even appoint the head of an academy. Comes Antoninus, and he forges this relationship with the Rebbe. He creates great peace in the land of Israel. Rebbe enjoys a status that no Chachamim before him ever enjoyed. Rebbe is now like the king of the land, to the point where even the Roman emperor is subservient to him. Rebbe then became the Reish Masifta. Rebbe then gathered all the Chachmei Yisrael together and redacted the Torah Shebal Peh, the Mishnayos. Had it not been for Antoninus' relationship with Rebbe, we can safely say we would not be here today. Because the Jewish people without Torah Shebal Peh cannot exist. And therefore, of all the descendants of Esav, maybe even more than Reb Meir, and maybe even more than Onkelos, and maybe even more than Shmai V'Avtalyon, which one was most critical to the future of the Jewish people? Antoninus. And therefore Rivka is worried, what's going to be with my children? I see I'm having a Yaakov, very good, but there's also a Chaya Ra in my stomach. And this Chaya Ra is going to cause so much trouble to my descendants that what's going to be, are they going to have a future? So you know what the Nechama was? Nechama is, don't worry! You know who else you know who's going to come from Esav? Antoninus. You know what Antoninus is going to do? He's going to forge a relationship with the Rebbe. It's going to afford Rebbe the opportunity to have Shalom b'Yisrael, to gather all the Chachmei Yisrael, and to redact the Mishnayos, and thereby the Gemara, and thereby the Jewish people have a future. Rivka says, Torah Shebal Peh. Now Klal Yisrael has a future. So that is possibly why, of all the descendants of Esav, the one which was most consoling to Rivka was Antoninus. Because Antoninus provided the future for Torah Shebal Peh. So maybe we could suggest that Rivka says the following. Could say Alpi Drush. The children are struggling. Vataymer. And Rivka says, Im Kain. if I'm going to have an Esav with my Yaakov, you know what this Esav is going to do? He's going to say the Torah is his. He's going to say Torah Shebechsav is his. Lama zeh anoichi. What do I need Torah Shebechsav for? Anoichi. What's anoichi? Aseres hadibros. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. Lama zeh anoichi. What good is Torah Shebechsav if there's going to be an Esav, a Christian world, right? And you have every hotel in the world. You open up your drawer next to your bed. Holly Bibble, right there. Right? Torah Shebechsav. So what good is Yaakov Avinu if you're going to have an Esav? He's going to steal everything. He's going to co-opt everything. So what did Rivka do? Batelech lidrosh es Hashem. Es l'rabbis talmidei chachamim. She says, what's going to be with the Torah Sheba'al Peh? Anoichi is not going to cut it. Because the Anoichi is going to be stolen by Esav. Vatelech lidrosh es Hashem. So they said, don't worry. There's going to be an Antoninus. Antoninus is going to allow Rabbi Yehuda Anosi to make sure there's a Torah Sheba'al Peh. Which, by the way, the Rambam writes, Al pi hashgacha pratis, the Torah Sheba'al Peh was not allowed to be recorded until the advent of Christianity, so that they'll never be able to claim it as their own. They'll never be able to steal it. Because the main covenant between God and the Jewish people is a Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay, so this was the historic relationship between Rebbe and Antoninus. Yes. This is a historic relationship between Rebbe and Antoninus. So what we would like to discuss this morning is this Antoninus. He must have been a special guy if he had the courage and the bravery to venture out in this underground tunnel and come learn Torah from the Gadol Hadar, and eventually allow for the greatest work in our history, in the Mishnayos. Where did this Antoninus come from? Let's learn a little bit about his character to understand how this Antoninus allowed for such a thing. So we have a detail in a Tosfos in Masechta Avodah Zarah, an astounding detail. Take a look at number 6. Amrinam b'medrash. We say in the Medrash, Chalav metame, chalav metaher. Milk makes you impure. Milk makes you pure. Says Tosfos in the name of the Medrash. Kishanoilad Rebbe. When Rebbe was born, Gazru, the Romans made a decree shaloi lamal, not to circumcise. V'aviv v'imai malu, and his father and mother circumcised him. Shalach kezer revilu Rebbe v'imai lefanav. The Caesar seized Rebbe and his father and mother. What happened? So it's right, they're about to be presented in front of the Caesar, and the Caesar's going to say, why'd you give your kid a milah? So you know what Rebbe did? You know what Rebbe's father did? Rebbe's father took a different kid. You know who Rebbe's father took? Antoninus. And instead of bringing Rebbe in front of the Caesar, he took baby Antoninus. And who nursed Antoninus on the way to the Caesar? Rebbe's mother nursed Antoninus. And she nursed him. So the Caesar opens up the kid. Lo and behold, he's an Aral. He says to his attendants, what's going on? What are you bringing me? Are you mocking me? So the Hegmon said, no, I saw with my own eyes the parents give the kid a milah, but their God loves them so much, He makes miracles for them. They abolished the Gezerah. Says Tosfos in the name of Yerushalmi. Antoninus went to learn Torah. He was Megayer, and he had a milah. So lo and behold, Tosfos is saying that Antoninus eventually was circumcised. He learned Torah. He converted. And what gave him this supernatural ability? The milk of Rebbe's mother. Right? You ever see these advertisements? Got milk? Yeah? So you can put Antoninus on the, picture of Antoninus. Antoninus came, where did he come from? The milk of Rebbe's mother. Okay? So let's get more details of the story in the Sefer Menaras Hamar of Rabbi Yitzchak Abuhav. Yitzchak Abuhav lived in 14th century Spain. His work, Menaras Hamar, was translated into many languages, into Yiddish, into Ladino, into German. He writes, one time, the Romans made a decree that the Jewish people cannot circumcise their children. At that time, Rebbe was born. So who is Rebbe's father? Reb Shimon Gamliel said, what are we going to do? We're not going to circumcise our kid. We have to circumcise our kid, and whatever comes will come. Sure enough, the Sar found out about it, and they said to Reb Shimon Gamliel, look, you're a very honorable man. We owe you a lot of kavod, but nevertheless, the Caesar made this decree. We have no choice but to summon you and your child to appear before the Caesar. Okay? So what they do, they traveled to the Caesar, they got to a hotel, and lo and behold, the owner of the hotel was Antoninus' father. And who was born at that time? Antoninus. So the mother of Rebbe went to the mother of Antoninus, and they started talking, and she told her the whole story. And Antoninus' mother said, you know what, you look like a nice woman. Take my kid, who's not Mal, and you give me your kid, and save yourself. And that's what she did. So she goes to the Sar. So they report that this couple circumcised their kid. The Caesar takes a look at the kid. He said, what are you talking about? This kid doesn't have a milah. You're mocking me. So the general said, no, I saw with my own eyes. The kid was given a milah, but their God always answers them. So the Caesar said, what are you talking about? You're Meshugana. He killed the general. He was Mavatel, the Gzera. Rebbe's mother is headed back to the inn. She comes back to the house of the mother of Antoninus. The mother of Antoninus says, look, my son was switched for your son. I nursed your son. It's only right that our kids should get together. Let's start making play dates between our kids. We'll invite each other to their houses. Says the Menaras Hamar, as a reward for the milk that Antoninus nursed from the mother of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, he was zoicha to learn Torah and serve Rebbe, and he got Olam Hazeh and he got Olam Haba. It's all in the milk. It's all in the milk.
Got milk.
Got milk. In fact, Megala Mukos, Nasanata Shapira, who had a very prestigious chavrusa by the name of Eliyahu Navi, and Megala Mukos writes, by the way, Megala Mukos wrote 222 perushim on the first pasuk in Parshas Va'aschanan. Moshe Rabbeinu was mispalo. Ebra Navi Eretz Aratzatovah. So on that two-word tefillah, Ebrana, Megala Mukos writes 222 perushim. He wrote a fat sefer on those two words. Okay? So he says, what was Moshe mispalo for? When he said Ebrana, he was davening that Antoninus should like Rebbe. How do we see that in the words Ebrana? Oh, very simple. Ebrana, of course, stands for Aleph, Antoninus. Ayin, Orel. Antoninus was an Orel. Beis, Bris. Reish, Rabbeinu. Hey, HaKadosh. Ebra. In other words, Antoninus, being an Orel, saved Rebbe's skin who had the bris. Now listen to this. Not only was Antoninus a descendant of Esav, and Rebbe a descendant of Yaakov, listen carefully. Antoninus was the Gilgal of Esav, and Rebbe was the Gilgal of Yaakov. And, listen carefully, Rebbe is called what? Rabbeinu HaKadosh. What bracha of Shemona Esrei corresponds to Yaakov Avinu? Avos is Avraham, Gvuros, Mechayeh Mesim is Yitzchak, because after the Akedah, Pirkei Rebbe Lezer says he made the bracha Baruch Mechayeh HaMesim. And what's the third bracha of Shemona Esrei? Ata Kadosh. So what's Rebbe called? Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Yaakov Avinu is Mesake and Ata Kadosh. He's called Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Okay? One second. Fasten your seatbelts. You ready for this? Rebbe is called Rebbe Huda Hanasi. You know what Hanasi stands for? Nitzutz Shel Yaakov Avinu. Rebbe Huda was a Nitzutz Shel Yaakov Avinu. And Esav was a Gilgal of Antoninus. You know what Ebra no stands for? Says Megal Mukas. Antoninus, Esav, Bimei, Rabbeinu, HaKadosh, Nitzutz echad. They're one spark. They're one spark. Because we know Te'umim, twins, they come from one tipa. So Yaakov and Esav, Antoninus and Rebbe, they come from the same cloth. Okay. One, let's just take it a little further. We know the midah of Abraham was what? Chesed. Yitzchak's midah was what? Gevura. Yaakov Avinu's midah? Emet. Tiferes. Tiferes. What is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi's first comment in Pirkei Avos? Rabbi Omer, Ezo hi derech yeshara sheyavar lo ha'adam, kol shehi tiferes la'aiseha, v'tiferes lo min ha'adam. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi emphasizes and highlights the midah of tiferes. That is the midah of Yaakov Avinu. Okay. Comes the Ben Yoyada. Yeah, comes the Ben Yoyada. And the Ben Yoyada says like this. Rebbe is the Gilgal of Yaakov. And Antoninus, he's a Nitzutz of Esav. So Antoninus comes to this world. He says, look, I messed up the first time around. Now I'm here to rectify, to serve you, to be Mekayim, V'rav Yavoid Soyer. So what does Rebbe say? Rebbe says, look, don't get involved with all these, heavenly calculations, these Shamayim Dika calculations. Rebbe says, Lav Oirach Ara L'Zalzulim Al. This is not Oirach Ara. This is not the way we do things downstairs in this world. Down here in this world, you have to act with your feet on the ground. Mutzav Arza. You have to act planted in this world. You can't act in this world. Rabbi Yehuda says to Antoninus, you can't start serving me. You can't get down on all four and I'm going to climb on your back because if you have these shamayim dika calculations. He said the words, Lav oirach aro l'zalzul. This is not the way we act down here in this world. So Rabbi Yehuda says back, Antoninus says back, no, there's no such thing as the way of this world. The way of this world follows the way it's supposed to be in shamayim. Okay, so it comes out. Now, by the way, the Ben Yoyada takes it even further. Ben Yoyada says, even Esav was aware of such a thing. And Esav says to Yaakov in Parshas Vayishlach, Nisa, one day we're going to travel, Yaakov. In other words, he says, me and you, Yaakov, we're going to travel away out of this world together. V'nelcha, and we're going to go to the next world. V'elcha l'negdecha, and we're going to come back again. And again, Atziga na imcha min ha'am asher iti. And the second time around, I'm going to be serving you. And you know what I'm going to give you? Na. Atziga na. You know what na stands for? Nefesh Antoninus. That's what I'm going to give you, Esav says to Yaakov. Atziga na amcha min ha'am asher iti. Okay, so it comes out that where did the greatness of Antoninus come from? It came from the milk of Rebbe's mother. Milk has a lot of power, right? There's always, especially in the United States of America, in the last century, there was always different fads, whether nursing was a good thing, was a bad thing. About 50 years ago, it was considered barbaric. It was considered something that poor people do. By the way, Al Pi Kabbalah, the bina of a child comes through the mother's milk. The understanding, the seichel of a child, comes from the chalav imay. But what Toldos is saying is that the greatness of Antoninus, the greatness that came from the milk of Rebbe's mother. But you should know that this concept, the effect of mother's milk, is a very well-established concept. If you take a look at Rabbeinu B'chaye, famous words of Rabbeinu B'chaye in Parshas Emor, Rabbeinu B'chaye says, I were to ask you, are people like their father or are people like their mother? So you say, well, that's 50-50, flip a coin, is it going to be heads or tails? Well, 50% of the DNA comes from the father, 50% of the DNA comes from the mother. Yeah, but, says Rabbeinu B'chaye, now, you say, it depends. Some people are more like their father, some people, no. There's a general rule, and that is, you're a little bit more like your mother than your father. What? Why is that? Says Rabbeinu B'chaye, there was a person by the name of, right, the Mekalel, the one who cursed Hashem. And the Torah stresses the fact that his mother was V'shem Imai Shloimis Bas Divri. Says Rabbeinu Bechaye, why is the Torah saying who his mother was? Because people take on the character of the mother more than the father. You don't like that, right? You want to think your kid is like you. No, sorry. He's maybe, or she's maybe 45% like you, 46. That's because he's his father. But no, that's not what it means. Avram Hayledasis. Avram Hayledasis. He looked like you, Avram. But you want character-wise, person is more like the mother than the. Why? Says Rabbeinu Bechaye. Very simple. You ever drink wine that was in a casket? Wine takes on the taste of the casket. Well, the child is in his mother's womb for 9 months. During those 9 months, it's like being in a cherry casket. Those 9 months influences the child to take on a little bit the character of the mother. And, says Rabbeinu Bechaye, the mother nurses the kid. And through the milk of the mother, the nature and the character and the personality of a child is molded, not, we don't know how much, but a little bit more like the mother than the father. But scientists don't say that. They don't know Rabbeinu Bechaye. What can we do?
Antoninus, he was an Arel.
He was an Arel, but as Tosfos says, eventually he was Megayer, and he circumcised himself. That was right after the story. Good. Okay.
Did Rabbi drink from his mother's milk?
We have not seen that yet.
That's why the Caesar said that.
We haven't seen that yet. We'll see. We'll see. I'll give you another illustration of the power of milk. Okay? The Psikta Rabasi in Parsha Mem Daled on the pasuk Moishivi Akeres Havayis Eim Abonim Smecha. Beautiful, hallelujah. Right? So Eim Abonim Smecha. Who's the Eim Habanim? Sarah. Frak the Medrash. What do you mean Eim Habanim? She only had one kid. Says the Medrash. When Sarah gave birth to Yitzchak, all the goyim mocked her. They said, oh, very nice. She went to the orphanage. She picked up a kid. She's making believe that she's the mother. She ain't the mother. So Avram Avinu says to Sarah, Sarah, show you're the mother. This is not a time for tznius. Says the Medrash, Sarah then started to nurse her son and all the babies in the world. They all lined up to nurse from Sarah. Says the Medrash, this is the fruition of the Nevuah. Heinika banim Sarah. Sarah nursed children. Says the Medrash. Now, some people brought their kids to Sarah be'emes. They wanted their kids to be zoicha, to have some of the milk of the tzaddikas. Others did it just to test Sarah. Says the Psikta Rabasi, nobody lost out. Nobody lost out. The ones that came to be zoicha to get milk from Sarah, they all converted. And the ones that just came to test Sarah, they were successful. Says the Medrash, if you ever see a successful person in this world, it's because their ancestor nursed from Sarah. If you ever see someone who has Yiras Shamayim, they nursed from Sarah be'emes. Anything good that ever is seen in this world came from Sarah Imenu's milk. The ones that drank it be'emes are Jewish people today. The ones that drank it just to test her, they're successful today. The ones that are neither, they didn't nurse from Sarah. That's what the Medrash says. So you see the koyach of the milk of a tzaddikas.
What happened to all the converts?
What?
What happened to all the converts that they converted?
Now, I don't know. It doesn't mean necessarily they converted on the spot then and there. Maybe it means throughout history and their descendants. I don't know. I'm not sure. By the way, the Chida brings down an amazing thing on the dilemma of Rivka Imenu. That Im Kain Lama Zel Anoichi. She says like this. You ready what she says? She says, my father-in-law, Abraham, he had some impurity in him from his father that had to come out. So Sarah was very smart. Sarah gave Abraham Hagar. So Abraham's impurity came out in Hagar. They had Yishmael, And now that Abraham's impurity came out, then he lived with me, Sarah says, and we had a tzaddik. I thought Yitzchak was completely pure. He had a father, Abraham, he had a mother, Sarah. But now Rivka says, I have an Esav in me. I made a big mistake. I should have given Yitzchak a shivcha to live with before he lives with me, to get the impurity out. That's what Rivka was afraid of. Who says this? Says the Chidah, he brings it down from the Kadmonim, that what Rivka was worried was the same way Sarah gave Avraham a shivcha, Rivka says, I should have given Yitzchak a shivcha. Says the Chidah. So what was the response to that concern? You know what the response is? This is astounding. The response is, Rivka, don't worry. There's no impurity in Yitzchak. Esav. At least there'll be converts from Esav. Shmaya v'Avtalia, Rav Meir, Unclus. But Yishmael, nobody good ever came out of Yishmael. No one ever converted from Yishmael. Isn't that interesting? No one ever converted. You'll say, last Wednesday night we said Yisra HaYishmaeli converted?
He repented though, right?
He didn't convert. He was a nitzotz. He didn't convert. Why is it that there are converts from Esav and there are no converts from Yishmael? Historically, right? We know throughout the ages, right? Even you read, after the Holocaust, descendants of Nazis converted. But throughout history, there are always many converts from the Christian world. And from the other world, from the Arabs, nobody ever converts. Why? Says the Chidah, in the name of the Arizal. Because Yishmael was in the womb of Hagar. A womb of Hagar doesn't produce anything good. But Esav was in the womb of Rivka. Rivka's the cherry casket. From such a womb, Gerim could come. But we could add one prat based on what we're learning. And that is, there's another thing that Esav got from Rivka, and that is Esav nursed from Rivka. Yishmael nursed from Hagar. From Hagar, from that milk, nothing good's coming from that milk. But the milk of Rivka Hatzadekes, Rivka Imenu, that's why perhaps there are Gerim from Esav and not from Yishmael. Okay? So now, let us proceed on in our path. How exactly, what is this process that the milk of Rebbe's mother purified Antoninus? What's the mechanism? How, here you have Antoninus, he comes from Esav, and by drinking milk, I know milk gives you calcium, or what else? Vitamin A? Vitamin D. Thank you for vitamin D. Amino acids. Fat. Right? It gives you a lot of things. And all of a sudden, so here you have a Russia, and he drinks good milk, kosher milk, chalav Yisrael, chalav, bas Yisrael, and now all of a sudden, what's the mechanism? So it's a very interesting idea that is advanced in the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas, Pinchas Friedman. He says like this. We know that biologically, a woman has a monthly cycle. She has a vest, and every month she has a cycle of dam. And strangely, when she's nursing, she doesn't have a cycle anymore. What happened to the dam? Well, the Gemara Masechta Nida and the Gemara Masechta B'chayros and Avav Amud Beis says a very interesting phenomenon. Dam ne'ekar v'naseh chalav. The blood congeals and becomes milk. Yeah, but scientists don't say that. That's because they don't know the Gemara and B'chayros. If they would know the Gemara and B'chayros, they would know that the composition, the chemical composition of blood is, the master chemist recomposes that material and turns it into milk. Esav, we know, is called Admoini. The Medrash says, why Admoini? Because he looks like a murderer. You take one look at Esav, he looks like he's going to shed blood. There's blood all over. He looks like blood. The Arizal writes in Parshas Vayikra, that, look at number 16, Bechinas dam tameh, besoid hu edaim. He eats red. He eats edaim. He wears red. His whole mahus, his whole essence is blood. He's one big blood man. He's a murderer. He's blood. So how do you transform dam? Esav is dam. How do you purify dam? Oh, we know there's a process. Dam nekar v'naseh chalav. Blood is reconstituted into milk. So that's possibly, suggests the Sefer, Likutei Mamorim, this is possibly the mechanism. Here you have Esav. Esav is bebechinas dam, and through the chalav of the mother, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he is reconstituted into chalav tahar. By the way, if you look back in Tosfos on Masechta Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Amud Beis, Tosfos introduces his story, chalav metame, chalav metaher. Milk makes impure, milk makes pure. It was the milk of the mother of Rebbe that purified Antoninus. But what does Tosfos mean? Chalav metame, milk makes impure. Who was made impure by milk? Well, now we come to something even more astounding. And that is, you look in the Sefer, Seder Hadoros, a Rabbi Chiel Halpern, which is a historical work, but a very important one, because we have footnotes on the Seder Hadoros from the Chida. And this gives us a clue into what Tosfos means. Chalav mitame. And this is what Rabbi Boaz was alluding to before. You know, Antoninus is now being brought by Rebbe's mother to appear before the Caesar. And he's hungry. So who feeds him? Rebbe's mother. What was Rebbe eating at that time? Rebbe's back in the house of Antoninus. What's Rebbe eating? OU Gerber smashed peas? You know, what's she feeding him? Enfamil? Beech nut? Butternut? Squash? You know, what was she feeding him? Says the Seder Hadoros, and he just mentions this Agav Orcha. He says that when the wife of Rebbe brings Antoninus to the Caesar, he says, "Ve'eshes haKezer hoyso iheves l'imay shel Rebbe, ve'achlifasai imay ba'Antoninus, ve'heni kasai." The mother of Rebbe nourished Antoninus. Ve'eshes haKezer hinika l'Rebbe. The wife of the Caesar, the wife of Antoninus' father, nursed Rebbe. When you're hungry, you're hungry. Now, where does the Seder Hadoros get this from? This is probably a quote from a sefer called Galgulei Neshamas to the Ramami Pano, where the Ramami Pano writes an amazing thing, that Antoninus' mother nursed Rebbe, and she then became the Gilgal, you know, the Gemara in Shabbos talks about somebody, a man who had to nurse his children. That person was the Gilgal of the wife of the mother of Antoninus. So now we have all the milk straight. We know who drank which milk.
It all makes sense.
It's all about milk. Rebbe nursed from the mother of Antoninus, and Antoninus nursed from the mother of Rebbe. Now, you bring up a good point. Is it permitted to drink milk from a non-Jewish woman?
No.
It's 100% mutter.
Sure.
Of course it's mutter. No, why not?
So how come Moshe Rabbeinu did it?
Well, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do a lot of things that we do.
He's supposed to be our leader.
Okay.
Supposed to learn from him, no?
No, not every chumrah that Moshe Rabbeinu did we have to do. No.
Torah Tzivalan Moshe.
Yeah, very good. But we don't have to drink the same milk he drank. He also drank milk in the midbar. We don't have to go to the midbar to drink milk, right? There's no halacha. Are you allowed to drink milk from a non-Jewish woman? Absolutely mutter. It's halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Look at number 21. Halacha is chalav mitzris kechalav Yisraelis. The milk of an Egyptian woman is like the milk of a Jewish woman. Nevertheless, if you have Jewish milk available, it's a hidur, it's a chumrah not to drink the milk of a gaya. Why not? Because the milk of a gaya will cloud the heart and will produce bad character. Where does the Ramah get this from? The Ramah gets this from the Ran, who quotes the Rashba. The Rashba says that Me'ikar Hadin, you're allowed to nurse from a kusis. However, says the Rashba, It's midas chasidus, not to nurse from a kusus. Why not? Because a Jewish woman is a rachaman, a baishan, and her milk will produce good character. However, even though technically speaking you're allowed to nurse from a non-Jewish woman, midas chasidus, it's better not to, and that's what the Medrash tells us. That when Moshe Rabbeinu was a young child, and they called for him an isha meinekes mina ivriyos. So the Medrash asked, why do they have to call for him a Jewish wet nurse? He could nurse from anybody. The answer is, since his mouth was destined to speak with the Shekhinah, it was not appropriate for his mouth to drink from a non-Jewish woman. And therefore the Medrash says so too. A child, it's midas chasidus, not to drink, not to nurse from a non-Jewish woman. So it would seem, though, a little bit difficult to swallow how Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who is the redactor of Torah Shabal Peh, and perhaps has given our people its greatest contribution in our history, why Hashgacha Pratis would have it that he would have to nurse from the mother of Antoninus. And it's mashma from Tosfos that the same way the Kedusha of Antoninus emanated from the milk of Rebbe's mother, it also says chalav metame. Somehow the milk of a non-Jewish woman could cause impurity. Are we going to say, chas v'shalom, that Rebbe was influenced by the milk of Antoninus' mother? Why, first of all, the Shvilei Pincha says this is a question that should not give you any sleep. So if you're sleeping now, you should wake up. Yeah? How is it possible that Hashgacha Pratis has it that Rebbe would be forced to drink from the milk of the mother of Antoninus?
What about the Rebbe's parents? How come they didn't say?
They're in the middle of saving his skin. They're called to see again. You're led. Me'ikra din it's mutter.
How did they give her, the mother of Antoninus, the permission?
There's no isser. The question is not that it's usser. It's mutter. They had to. If somebody is in a situation where they don't have food, for the parents not to let them nurse from a guy, it would be an avera. You have to do it. The question is why the hashgacha would have it, and in fact, it's mashma from Tosfos that the milk of Antoninus' mother affected Rebbe Lara.
That's why he was a big businessman.
So it comes out like this. If you look in the Torah's Moshe, the Chassam Sofer from this week's Parsha, not in the regular Torah's Moshe, but in the Torah's Moshe Hashalem. Torah's Moshe says, here Rivka takes the big day Esav, and she puts it on Yaakov. Yeah? That was a halachically questionable thing to do. Because if somebody gives you something to watch, you can't let somebody else use it. Rivka had a very simple Eitzah. She could go to the costume store, say, I need a bear costume, put on him, rough hair, and they walk in like a bear, like a chayara. Why dafka does he have to go in wearing Esav's begadim? So the Chassam Sofer quotes from his Rebbe, the Hafla, that everything a person does affects them. Whatever you see affects you. You say, I can watch anything, but it won't affect me. That's very foolish. You see something, you're going to do it. You hear something, you're going to do it. You wear something, it also affects you. Rivka knew that this Yaakov could not tell a lie if his life depended on it. He didn't know how to lie. He didn't know how to finagle. So what's she going to do to get him to be a little bit, deceitful?
Spiced.
So what she does is she says, wear these clothing. They'll have a hashva on you. You'll wear Esav's clothing. You'll learn how to finagle like Esav. So says the Shvilei Pinchas, Hashgacha had it that Rebbe had to do a very important job, but it wasn't 100% kosher v'yashar. Are you allowed to write down Torah Shabal Peh? You're not allowed to write down Torah Shabal Peh. What is it? A chumrah natu. An isser d'Rabbanan. It's an isser d'Oraisa. Ki al pi hadvarim ha'ela. Dvarim Shabal Peh. I atar rashay. Litnam b'chsav. To the point where it's brought down in many svarim that if you want to write a sefer and you're only writing the sefer for your own fame, what's the heter to write down Torah Shabal Peh? So it's not forgotten. I'm not writing it down so it's not forgotten. I'm writing it down. I want to have a good reputation. You're over an Isser D'Oraisa of writing down Torah Shabal Peh. you can only write it down for the sake of the Torah, not for the sake of your business, of your reputation. So, but Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi needed to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh, Kedei shelo tishtakach Torah miYisrael. So he had to learn a little bit, had to, bend the rules. So what's he going to do? How's he going to be able to bend the rules? So Rebbe Shem says, don't worry, I'll give you some of Esav's milk. So Hashgacha had it that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi had a nurse from Antoninus to be able to take a little bit of the klip of Esav, so that when push comes to shove, and he had to violate Eis Lasois Lashem, Heifiru Terasecha. You think even Lasois Lashem, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi needed to take a little bit from Esav. Esav was very well versed in the concept of Heifiru Terasecha. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi only took that when it was Eis Lasois Lashem. Where did it come from? The milk of Antoninus. The big question is, got milk. Where does your milk come from? Are you nursing from the mother of Rebbe or the mother of Antoninus? So get a load of this. Despite the fact that Hashgacha had it, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi nursed from Antoninus, and he had to, because he had to be the redactor of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Nevertheless, the Gemara says in Masechta Bava Metzia Daf Pei Amar Rebbe Chavivin Yisurin. Rebbe said Yisurin are very beloved. Kibel alei tlei sarshni. Rebbe accepted upon himself Yisurim for how long? 13 years. Why 13 years? And the Medrash says further, what kind of Yisurim did Rebbe accept upon himself for 13 years? Not headaches, not stomach aches, not arthritis, toothaches. Toothaches. Why toothaches? You know why? Because what produces teeth?
Milk.
Milk! It's a pasuk in Vayechi. Uleven shinayim mechalav. Says Rashi that his eyes will be red from wine and his teeth will be white from milk. So even though Rebbe had to write the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and Rebbe had to drink the milk of Antoninus, but he felt he still needed kapara, so he was makabel Yisurim for 13 years. Why 13 years? He was explaining, I had to drink this milk in order to be doiresh yud gimel midoy shatar nidrashes lahem. And what kind of Yisurim? Toothaches, right? Why? Where were the dentists? The dentists were all in Brooklyn. They didn't have dentists in Sipari. So therefore, why dafka toothaches? Because Rebbe was being mechaper. He had to rid himself of the influence of the milk of the mother of Antoninus. And this is what we tell Rivka Imenu. Rivka Imenu was so worried. Rivka Imenu says, what's going to be with me? I'm going to have the Yaakov, but I'm going to this Esav is going to take the Torah Shebachsav. The Christians are going to steal the Torah Shebachsav. They're going to take the Anoichi. What's going to be with Torah Sheba'al Peh? Vatelech lidrosh Es Hashem. She went to find what's going to be with the Es, the rabbis, Talmidei Chachamim. So they said, don't worry. You are nursing, you're giving milk to not only a Yaakov and Esav. The milk that you give to Esav will produce good Gerim. And those Gerim are the names of the likes of Antoninus. And Antoninus is going to nurse from the mother of Rebbe. And Antoninus is going to allow Rebbe to have the peace to be able to put together Torah Sheba'al Peh. And now the universe will have Kiyum, Bereshis Bar Lakim, there'll be a Klal Yisrael, there'll be a Torah Sheba'al Peh, and this is all in the merit of Antoninus nursing from the mother of Rebbe. Have a good day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.